What is up, guys? Eric here from Real Film Reviews, bringing you another movie review, this time for the new Star Wars film, The Last Jedi. The Last Jedi is written and directed by Rian Johnson of Looper fame, stars Mark Hamill, Daisy Ridley, John Boyega, Oscar Isaac, Carrie Fisher. A whole bunch of people are in this movie. The Last Jedi is the direct sequel to The Force Awakens, which came out 2 years ago. I don't really want to give away much of the plot, because this needs to be as spoiler-free as it can possibly be. So all I will say is that the Rebels are being tracked by the First Order and they are being hunted down by them. Not really that surprising of a plot, but I really don't want to give any more away than that, and basically they are all sent out on their own little missions to try and help the Rebels make it out of this dire situation. The Force Awakens was a fairly debated film as to whether people thought it was great, since it had so many similarities to A New Hope. However, I think this film does the exact opposite of that. This movie has a lot of very different aspects that we haven't seen in other Star Wars films. It takes very interesting plot choices. It makes a lot of very big decisions in this film for what will happen in Episode 9, and I really liked that about the film. And that is all glued together by the amazing performances that are in this movie. All of the returning cast does a great job. The two people that I specifically want to single out, though, for their performances are Adam Driver, first and foremost. He is so great as Kylo Ren. Like, I don't think they could have casted anyone better for that role. He is phenomenal. He is simultaneously a sympathetic character while also being someone that you kind of hate. And that is so hard to do in a character, to make someone who is rooting for the good guys, those being the rebels, but you still feel bad for the bad guy. And that is how I felt watching this whole film. The entire time I was like, man, Kylo Ren, you're kind of the worst, but at the same time, I get it, man. I get where you're coming from, and I feel kind of bad for you. And the other performance is Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is amazing in this film as Luke Skywalker. It's so great to see him back in this role, in a full-fledged actual role as the character, and he does such a good job. You feel all of the raw emotion that this character has, all of the hardships that he's been through, and everything that he carries as a burden on his back from the life that he has lived, and I thought that he sold it so well. The script for this film is also phenomenal. Rian Johnson did a great job writing a story that has such a sense of urgency to it. Star Wars films in the past always took very calculated steps that would eventually lead to a big climactic scene at the end of the movie, where this film has multiple big climactic sequences all throughout it. And while some of them maybe you could say are still those calculated steps, some of them are just really amazing action sequences or really great dialogue sequences that are just sprinkled throughout this entire film, and they're so good. Everything in this script worked so well to make all of these pieces fall together, so that way at the end, when we're supposed to get that big climactic sequence, it felt like literally everything that we had seen up till that point literally came together in those final moments. The script's sense of urgency for all of these characters to accomplish their goals was great, and along with that, every single character had their own time to shine. And I think that that's something that's very important, because this film does not feel like there is one definitive lead character. It genuinely feels like a group effort, like an ensemble, and that is something that is difficult to do well. Lord of the Rings did it amazingly, and I think that this film did it really, really well, because the film doesn't focus on just Rey or just Finn or just anyone. It focuses on everyone, and they all get almost equal screen time, I think, which is extremely impressive. Poe gets to grow as a character. You get to see more of him on screen. Finn gets to grow. Rey gets to grow. Every character that has been previously established just gets more and more established to where you adore their characters even more. And then new additions are also great. I want to specifically point out Kelly Tran's Rose, who was actually a really fun addition to the series. She's a very heartfelt sort of like, I think a lot of people online have described it really well. She is like what any of us fans would be like if we were in a Star Wars film. She really adores these characters. She literally refers to Finn as a rebel hero, and it's really great, and I thought her character was a great addition to this universe. BB-8 continues to be an extremely entertaining side character as a droid. I know that a lot of people think he's just a ripoff of R2-D2, and maybe he is kind of, because he's just another droid companion for a character, but he's a lot of fun in this film, and he had a lot of funny moments, and that's another thing. This film is actually really funny. It's not very like tongue-in-cheek or really just like, ooh, very dry sense of humor. This movie has genuinely funny moments that everyone in the theater when I saw this was laughing at. They weren't just like, oh, that's kind of like sort of childish and humorous. It was like, that's genuinely a joke that was written in the script to make us all laugh and have a good time while watching this actually pretty serious Star Wars film. And then just to get it out of the way, the Porgs are really cute. They're not overdone in the movie. They're not annoying. They play their part, and their part is basically just to be a cute little animal that's in the movie, and I enjoyed them. And I am going to see this movie again, and I might do a spoiler review of this film because I know I'm being rather vague. But the one thing that really impressed me about this film was the action. The action in this movie is maybe the best we've ever seen in a Star Wars film. The shootouts, the space battles, but especially the lightsaber duels are absolutely stunning in this movie. Like, they are gorgeous. And that's also in part to Rian Johnson's amazing direction of this film. This movie feels like a true massive cinematic experience. There are gorgeous visuals. This movie has some of the most beautiful shots that I've seen so far this year. It still doesn't have my favorite shot of the year, but it has some of the most gorgeous scenery and some of the best special effects that we've seen all year. But along with the special effects, this movie didn't rely entirely on CGI, which I love. I love it when modern movies don't just put all their eggs in the CGI basket. This movie had a lot of practical effects and practical aliens that were made with makeup and prosthetics, and it was great. This movie really wasn't like any other Star Wars movie that we've seen before. It had so many twists and turns and so many new characters and returning characters, but it all felt like it had this great balance. And maybe that's cliche to say since the Force is all about balance, but it truly did. This movie had a perfect balance between every character, between every sequence, between every action. It was paced really well. There really wasn't any standout thing that you were like, wow, that was really bad. Everything just had this right amount of it, and it didn't overdo it, but it also didn't undersell anything in the film. And that's not to say that this movie is without flaws. It, to me, has one flaw. And the one flaw that it has is stuff that I can't get into because it's all spoiler stuff. It's really just that in the script, to me, there are a couple moments or a couple character traits that felt slightly cheesy and sort of out of style compared to the rest of the film. While the rest of the film felt very grounded in the Star Wars universe and felt like it was looking towards the future while building a phenomenal film, there were a couple moments that just felt out of place to me, and I did enjoy those moments still, but in retrospect, looking back at the film as a whole, I sort of realized their placement and maybe the decision made there was a tad on the odd side and a little out of character for the rest of the film. And even though there were those cheesy small moments that maybe I didn't think fit with the script, the thing that I think is still impressive is that I didn't really notice those until I had a discussion with the friends that I saw this movie with afterwards. For like 2 hours we talked about this movie. And that's another thing. This movie is amazing to see with friends because you can all discuss it and talk about what you thought about certain aspects of the story, which is so much fun. But I think that discussing the film is where you will begin to see maybe the few little cracks that there are in it. And that I think was very helpful to me, was sitting around and talking about the film, because that really helps you get perspective and not just fanboy about the entire thing. I'm gonna give Star Wars: The Last Jedi an A. This movie was amazing. I loved seeing it in theaters with a full, sold-out crowd in a movie theater where everybody gets to cheer at the beginning and cheer at the end. It's a great time in movie theaters. If you like Star Wars, go see it opening weekend or the next weekend. Try to see this movie with a crowd. It enhances the experience so much. And I know that that sounds dumb, but it really does. And then along with that, I know that maybe it's just because I'm a little bit of a fanboy, but if you're a Star Wars fan, there's only so many of these that you get. There's only so many times you can go see a Star Wars movie with a full audience in a movie theater and have that moment when Star Wars pops up on the screen at the beginning and you just have a giant smile on your face that you can't wipe off. And that's at least how I felt when I saw this movie. It was the same when I saw Force Awakens, and I'm sure it'll be the same when I see Episode 9. Well guys, as always, I'm Eric. If you enjoyed this review, please do like, subscribe, comment down below what you thought of The Last Jedi, share everything we do here on Real Film Reviews, and hope to see you guys later.